The US doesn't express outright fear of the BRICS bloc, but it views the group's growing influence as a significant challenge to the US-led international order. Washington's response has shifted from dismissal to a more direct and sometimes aggressive policy of containing the bloc's influence. This is especially true as BRICS has expanded its membership and focused on creating alternatives to US-dominated financial and geopolitical systems. Key challenges posed by BRICS. The US perceives the BRICS bloc as a competitor on several fronts, particularly in the economic and geopolitical spheres. De-dollarization efforts. A primary concern for the US is the BRICS push to reduce reliance on the US dollar for international trade and finance. The group's members, particularly China and Russia, have been exploring alternative payment systems, such as trade in local currencies, and have even discussed the distant prospect of a new BRICS currency. While a unified BRICS currency is widely considered unfeasible due to internal divisions, the collective effort to bypass the dollar and the SWIFT payment system is seen as a direct threat to the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency and, by extension, to U.S. financial leverage. The U.S. uses its financial dominance to impose sanctions, and de-dollarization would weaken this tool. Geopolitical and economic rivalry. BRICS is often seen as a counterweight to the US-led G7, Group of Seven, and other Western-dominated institutions like the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, IMF. The group's expanded membership, which now includes key energy producers like the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Iran, gives it greater influence over global energy and commodity markets. This expansion signals a desire for a more multipolar world, where power is not concentrated in the West. U.S. policymakers are concerned that this trend could lead to a fragmentation of the global economy into rival blocs, with the U.S. and its allies on one side and the BRICS nations on the other. The U.S. response. The U.S. has adopted a multifaceted approach to counter the BRICS challenge, ranging from diplomatic pressure to economic threats. Direct pressure and tariffs. U.S. officials have openly warned BRICS members, especially those with close ties to both the U.S. and its adversaries, to reconsider their alignment with the bloc. For instance, high-ranking U.S. officials have put direct pressure on India to reduce its oil imports from Russia, threatening punitive tariffs on its exports if it continues to align with what the U.S. considers its main geopolitical rivals, Russia and China. This shows a more aggressive stance, where the U.S. is not simply ignoring the bloc but actively trying to disrupt its internal cohesion. Strengthening alliances. The U.S. has simultaneously worked to deepen security and economic ties with key BRICS members that it sees as potential partners rather than adversaries. India is a prime example. Despite tensions over its BRICS membership and trade with Russia, the U.S. has been deepening its security cooperation with India through partnerships like the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, which also includes Australia and Japan. This strategy seeks to pull countries like India closer to the Western orbit and away from a full alignment with China and Russia. A mixed message. While some U.S. officials and analysts have warned against dismissing the BRICS challenge, others have highlighted the bloc's internal divisions as a major weakness. Significant rivalries exist between key members, particularly the long-standing border disputes and geopolitical competition between China and India. These internal conflicts, along with the diverse economic and political systems of its members, make it difficult for the bloc to act as a truly unified front. The U.S. is aware of these fragilities and likely views them as a mitigating factor to the BRICS threat. In summary, the U.S. does not appear to be afraid, in a traditional sense, but it is taking the BRICS challenge very seriously. The U.S. response is a calculated effort to maintain its global leadership by counteracting the bloc's influence, while also leveraging the internal rivalries and economic dependencies that limit BRICS's power.